I call to order our business meeting at 6:37 PM. And Kaylee is going to read our land acknowledgement.
Certain acknowledgement are critical to building mutual respect and connection across differences. Please take a moment to consider the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that brings us together here today. The Park Rose Board of Education begins its effort by acknowledging that we are gathering on ancestral and unceded lands of the Monoma, Pathwahan, Pathwahan, Walton, California, Monoma, and many other tribes who made their homes along the Columbia River, the Portland area. We pay respects to others, past and present. We acknowledge them as the past, current, and future caretakers of the people.
Thank you, Kaylee. Do I hear a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
I move to approve tonight's agenda.
Do I hear a second?
Okay.
Any discussion? Student reps, do you have any questions? Oh man, I just lost my train of thought. It's gonna be one of those. Seconded, already, right? Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. The motion to approve tonight's agenda passes. Public comment procedure, if you wish to submit a public comment online before or during the board meeting, please follow the link to the electronic public comment form before reading over the public comments on the agenda. For in-person public comment, please fill out the intent to speak card located on the table by the door and hand it to the board administrative assistant. Recognitions, January is School Board Recognition Month. Please say the date, January 27th, from 6 to 6:30 for an appreciation dinner. Put on your calendars, be here. Presentations. We have Sacramento Goals Report from Principal Sarah Lance Christensen. Welcome.
Welcome everyone. For those who don't know, I'm Sarah, I'm from Sacramento, and I always love showing and presenting with you all. And the last couple of years, I've talked a little bit about how we've centered student need or student ideas and voice in some of our decision making. And so I'm going to continue that idea of centering students, but I'm going to talk a little bit about how we're conceptualizing MTSS, multi-tiered systems of support, because I know that's one of your goals as the board. And it's also something that we've been digging into as administrators and teaching staff too. Next slide, please. So this is kind of how we are conceptualizing multi-tiered systems of support at Sacramento. And I say right now, because just like anything, as we learn more about what it really means to try to create a system that focuses on student needs, we learn new things that then change what we think and how we roll. So these are kind of some of the things that we've been playing with. I think it really starts at Sacramento. We've talked a lot about the fact that every kid deserves and has a right to belong in our building and to feel successful and loved. And so that's that rightful presence. We've talked a lot in the last year and a half about how we figure out what students need. And then really MTSS is about organizing all of our resources, people, places, time, curriculum to meet those student needs. And we are trying to really think about creatively meeting needs over labels. So whether a student has an IEP or not, if they have a need, we're going to try to meet that need and use anybody in any place on campus to do it. Speaking of the people on campus, I can't speak enough about my wonderful staff. I mean, I might be slightly biased a little bit, but I think they are spectacular, and we've really been collaborating as a staff. We have some teams I'll talk about that come together to really think about how we will support our students. And then one of the things we've been playing around with is this idea of designing universally. So thinking about if we have a tool or a strategy that our students with our most intensive needs are accessing, that should be something we should just make universally available for any of our students. Next slide, please. Speaking of teams, these are kind of the teams. One of the things we've learned is that it's really important to have teams within MTSS and defined roles so that we can really know how all of our systems come together. So our leadership team oversees our systems, our PLC teams support teachers, and then we have our various tiers of support planning there, that if we're finding a student needs a little bit more, then the Universal offers these the teams that come together to figure out how we're gonna meet that need. And these are also the teams that came up with kind of 3 goals. So these are our 3 goals for Sacramento that we're trying to focus on. The first is creating and rolling out universal SEL tools, social emotional learning. And then it's exciting this year, trying to figure out how to monitor impact. We have lots of tools for monitoring academic success, but not as many for SEL. So we're partnering with the Ballmer Institute out of the University of Oregon. And we just rolled out our first SEL screener, universal screener called the SSIS. Our second goal we're leaning into this year is really increasing opportunities for critical thinking with students. And then our third is around really focusing those foundational skills for mathematics, which ties in very deeply with number 2 and that productive struggle. So what I hope to share, and I always go over 5 minutes, so I'm just going to apologize is just very briefly kind of how things we're trying in connection with these 3 goals within our tiers. Next slide, please. So our universal SEL support we have at Sacramento, our caring school community is our overall curriculum we use. They have daily SEL lessons around those different tenets right there. Connected to that, we have Komochis and mindfulness, and these are universal tools that we have rolled out and they're counselor supported, and those are really around the feeling identification, regulation skills, and then also the keys to communication that help us stay in community with each other and give kids an opportunity to redo when mistakes happen. In the fall, we also talked about how we're all gonna have big feelings as adults. Sometimes we need that place to find calm, and our kids do too. So our behavior specialist had designed this really amazing sensory and regulation space for our students with our most intense needs. And so we took that routine and we kind of made it universal, and our teachers redid their calming spaces. And so kids have a place to take a break with the idea of re-engaging. And then the other thing we rolled out universally is we noticed that kids sometimes were coming into our building already heightened. And so we start the day with play and connection. We call it a soft start. And it really supports that regulation, but we've noticed it helps get kids into their classrooms on time too, because it's a time kids really enjoy with each other. Next slide, please. And then we all need a little support sometimes. So these are just a few key ways we're leaning into redoing and repairing some shared processes and language around helping kids redo mistakes. We have additional and intensive SEL groups. Our counselor leads some. Again, our partnership with Ballmer Institute. I'm super excited. We have interns in behavioral health that will start with us in January. And then we have our behavior specialist that also leads groups. And then this year we call it the Caring Cougar Clubhouse. So with Andreas in our special education department, we have been trying to reimagine creating a program that really has the goal of supporting kids with the most intense behavioral needs to stay within their classroom and home communities. So these are our SEL supports. Next slide. And of course, we have universal academic supports. We have our core, we have Wicker. At Sacramento, we've really been thinking a lot about, again, that critical thinking, so that inquiry, that collaboration, how we get kids talking and working with each other. Last year, I think I shared that our students have been asking for more hands-on learning experiences. And so we heard them, and we hope that it eventually is part of the whole day, but right now we're just kind of dipping our toes in. And so we've created some intentional time in our schedule on Fridays where teachers are providing some full-on projects and some just mini kind of things to get kids really thinking and into materials and messy. We have the student conceived makerspace. That's what my leadership has designed the last few years. That's up and running. There's always something really cool that's going on there. And then trying to really bring in real world connections. As an example, we have Architects in Schools that has come in and worked with kids. And then we have our enrichment music PE library that kids have every week. And this year, the 3 specialists are really trying to connect with each other as well, which has been exciting. Next slide. And then we all need additional academic support sometimes too. So we have our pathways. We know, maybe Michael has shared from past, that the personalized pathways are really helpful for students. And there's a lot of research to talk about how that helps kids grow at faster rates. In reading last year, we had what's called a what I need time. We don't want any kid missing core instruction. And so what we have put into our schedule is a small group time in math and in reading this year. that every kid is in some sort of way getting what they need. So some kids might be with our title, some kids might be with a math interventionist or in a small group with a teacher, some kids might be working on their pathway, others might be in an enrichment project. So nobody's missing the core, but they're hopefully getting some really intense time strengthening core skills or developing those prerequisite skills. We have intensive academic groups that run as well that are supported by our academic specialists. And our title team is amazing, and we have an amazing math interventionist as well that's supporting kids too. Next slide. So what's next for us at MTSS? We are hoping on our leadership team to complete the Fidelity Integrity Assessment, which is in our partnership with SWIFT, to determine kind of next steps in system health. We're going to do our spring review of our SEL, which is the SSIS data, and iReady to reallocate resources. Our kids change, and so should the resources that we put toward them. As they tell us what they need. We're going to continue to support teachers in their learning around inquiry and supporting kids in productive struggle. We're going to use the lens of math to do that. And then we're kind of trying to rethink how we use our site council to really be in a community engagement group. We have some awesome community members and parents, partners that will be coming together in January to start that work and really think about what do we want to see in our building from a community lens. Next, please. I'm not gonna have brain, so I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm sorry I talked so fast.
No, thank
Trying to
you.
get it done in 5 minutes, so never once.
It's okay. There you go. We're fine. Sharing all the amazing work that's happening. Student board reps, do you have any questions, comments? I don't think so, no. All right, Mariah. Sonia?
Oh, my pen's not working. I was gonna write questions.
I'm
I'm gonna try to remember what I was gonna ask, but I think a couple of things. I wanted to get an idea of what it's like with the small groups. As you said, you have the groups that work on their special or their unique, whatever they need to work on. So,
Yeah.
and that, like, my walk into a room of 30 students, what would that look like? It's small. groups,
Yeah.
and I facilitated by,
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you might see, if you walked in, whether in math or reading, so you might see, and again, it's anytime, any place, right? So we have different people, that sometimes the staff will go to the kids, sometimes the kids will go to a small group space, but everybody's in something. So you might see kids that are working with a teacher in a small group, you might see kids that are on their pathway. You might see kids that are working, we're trying to bring play and games, so they're working on games that connect to the math skill that kids are working on. You might see kids finishing up a project. You might see kids that are with our math interventionist. She's super hands-on. So I was in her room not too long ago, and they were using manipulatives and stamping and things to really try to figure out like how many groups of 10 or how many ways they can make 10 and really come up with those ideas themselves rather than us just telling them. So you'd see kids doing a lot of different things.
wonderful. I'm curious if you get supportive parents today, are they aware of the strategies that their kids are using and?
Yeah, I mean, I think it varies from classroom to classroom because our teachers are the primary communicators around that. We have a monthly newsletter we send out. My new administrative assistant, Vern, who's wonderful, puts that together every month that kind of spotlights some of the things. But that's one of the reasons we really want, we're kind of rethinking that community engagement group is kind of how do we bring families in more as a partner as well. Yeah.
And then the STEM center or the.
STEAM, yeah.
The STEAM, what does that look like as one of the, what that like?
Yeah, so that was for my student leadership. I think I shared that if you were on the board last year, yeah. So it's a room that's off our library that used to be the old computer room when we still needed to have before we had the computer carts and you go in and, learn typing and all that. So we have taken that space and there's tables set up, there's all across the wall, like different art supplies, recycled material things. So the kids came up with what they wanted. So right now, in one corner, if you went in, you see some giant cardboard creations that are sitting there in progress. You might see on another board, I went in there, on another table, there were paper mache projects. I have no idea what they're turning into, but I'm sure they're gonna be spectacular. We also have a regulation space in there that has some reusable materials, like more big motor movement type of materials. So you might see a kid in there that's taking a regulation break, either through that or making something maybe in creating, because we know creating is a way that helps regulate for kids. You might see a whole class in there. You might see just a small group or a couple of kids. So it just varies. So teachers sign up to use it. throughout the day.
Yeah, thank you for all the work you're doing. I'd love to walk through and see what.
Come by anytime, absolutely.
Love the littles.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you.
One question. What do you mean when you say they're working on pathways?
Oh, yeah, sure. So in our iReady, so iReady is our curriculum, it's our core curriculum, like brick and mortar that teachers are teaching from, but then it has a computer component. And our diagnostic that we do 3 times a year in reading math sets a pathway for them based on any lagging skills that showed up on their diagnostic. So if I'm a kid, then I get a set of games, activities, lessons that are fed to me with the idea of hopefully filling in some of those gaps that maybe I showed on my diagnostic. So it's a computer-based pathway. Yeah, good question.
Well, I mean, one thing just that's very, that touched me very personally is in regards to just a lot of the regulation and calm, you know, just being someone who's on the spectrum. I wish that was something I had when I was in elementary school. I'm curious, and you may have touched on this, when it comes to the math component,
Mhm.
are there ways to identify like what the best learning style is for each kid as far as visual, verbal,
Yeah,
hands-on,
Well,
quick, or you know?
good question, good question. I mean, I think sometimes kids tell us that, right?
Sure.
So sometimes kids will just tell us like, this is what I need and can advocate for themselves. Sometimes they tell us in their behavior's communication. So you see kids that will gravitate more toward, you know, manipulatives or that will gravitate more toward a certain style. So teachers are paying attention to that. And then part of like the idea of universally designing, which we're working on, right? Like all of this is work in progress. When you universally design, then you make any tool available for anyone. So if one kid needs it in your class, then this is just a tool that's available. And so it's really about empowering kids to find the tool that's going to work for them. Is the idea in the end. That's what we're working toward.
And then with the iReady, the diagnostic testing that we utilize, is that just a question-based multiple choice format, or does that
No.
include those multiple?
Yeah, so it, you know, it is computer-based, right? And it's just meant to be a diagnostic and a screener. So anytime we're making decisions, we're also gonna pull in other pieces of data. But the nice thing about it is it's adaptive. So if I answer a question right, it's gonna give me a harder one. If I answer that right, it's gonna give me a harder one. So it adapts to the kids' answers with the idea that then they really kind of, you know, figure out where they are. And then that's what the pathways are built around. So we kind of start with that. We do it 3 times a year. We start at the beginning of the year. We'll do another diagnostic in January and relook at the data then as well there. And then we'll do another one at the very end of the year.
So I may not have asked the question correctly. In the diagnostic
Mhm.
testing, are the questions just multiple choice with verbiage? Or are there video components?
It's a little bit of everything. So
Okay.
there's always visuals, right, that are there. It might have kids manipulating something. Some of them do have like you're choosing from different answers, right?
But it's, all of that is, okay, that's
It's
what I
all
was,
within one,
that's
yeah.
what I was
Mhm.
curious about. I mean,
And it's just one, right? So we know that computers are not the way that all kids show us what they know. So we start there and then we kind of try to figure out.
I want to mirror Sonia's sentiment in the fact that I just see so much effort going into helping any of the students in the classroom learn the way that they need to learn. And I just appreciate that a great deal. Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, it's not just me. I got a great staff. I really do. I'm grateful for them.
Ditto. I would say, no, thank you. You know, it's always great to hear what you're trying, to, you know, for the betterment of our students. And, I guess if I had one question is, you know, I know that our schools come from different backgrounds. So like, do you, feel like if, English is not the students' first language, like how are they adapting to being able to ask the questions and you know, how do you identify that, you know, maybe that's one of their barriers of like not being able to speak up for themselves. And
Absolutely.
if they're, you know, so like, how do you adapt to that in that perspective.
This was actually a conversation that my leadership team had within the last month and a half, and so it's something that we're just really starting to think about and dig into. I can tell you some of the things we're trying. One, with the diagnostic, especially for the math diagnostic in particular, we can assign it in, right now, they just have Spanish. But for our Spanish speakers, that is a tool that we've used as well. My teachers have been really playing with, in terms of communicating, like, different technology. I think technology can be a really great way. So you might see, like, I was in a classroom the other day where I had, it's a classroom that has 4 newcomers. And so the teacher had got some kids set, and then she's going over and she's got her technology out, and she is having a conversation with them via the technology to support them getting started. So I think that's a place where we're really starting to dig in. We know there's every kid needs language development, and so part of it is just giving kids the opportunity to talk. I think part of it as well is not policing how they provide the answer. So I was in an ELD classroom, and you've got some kids that are answering in English because this was really a content building time, and you've got some kids that are answering in their primary language. I'm fortunate to have Spanish speaking and Russian speaking staff on campus. And so we also think about how we use our staff, whereas like we're redoing some schedules, and I'm going to take one of my Spanish speaking EAs and support a group of Spanish speaking students in mathematics. So we're trying to be creative, and I don't think we have all the tools quite yet, or a full understanding around it, but it literally is a conversation we just had not too long ago. So yeah,
I'm glad the conversations are happening.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
you
go ahead.
sparked a follow-up question for me. In those technologies, is that including like AI language models that are interpreting on the fly?
yeah, so we're using things like Google Translate. We have a new tool, which I can't remember the name of, Michael, right now, the one that's popping up on on the student computers, the AI tool. Like it reads things and can, yes. What's it called? Oh, thank you. Yes. So this is a brand new tool that has popped up. Actually, the kids found it before that some of the teachers did. And so that is something that in January we'll roll out to the whole staff, although we have some teachers that are kind of playing with it. It's very cool. So like, for example, on the slide, if that was on my computer, I have a tool that I can pop up that comes up that then will translate some things for me in a piece of text that will define things, that will read it to me. It just has some capabilities. So, I mean, I think technology can be a good tool. We don't know all of it yet, right? Yeah.
Our students know before us.
Absolutely, right?
I'm like, what is that?
I go to my son if I have a question.
Well, any other questions? No, all other questions? All right, well, thank you, and tell everyone, thank you for all the work that they're doing. We appreciate you all, thank you. All right, our next presentation is Mr. Meltzer, PFA monthly reports.
What should we talk about?
How are you feeling?
Oh my God. Tired. Tired, ready for this. 17? Day? Well, not 16. 17.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Levy. I'd be very curious, I know you kind of put this together, is what it would be like to try for a spring instead of a fall. I know there had been time, I know we talked about in the past, the idea of having, I think there was the consultant that had talked about like the numbers game, the getting people out. But I almost wonder about like if we were able to get same level of outreach, we were able to get the partnerships that the PAC was able to get, because now that we have those resources, and the PAC also sounds like, talking with Lily knows, that they're planning keeping it like going, so it won't just, it will stay. It can just be like the pro park goes pack, and ideally like indefinitely, because like anytime we need to bond, if anything. And that way it can just like live as like an extension arm of fundraising around stuff that we wanna do for a district, which I think would be good. But because of some of the networking and some of the connections that we made in this last election, it sounds like we have some access to some people who would still want to volunteer and help with some like really, really, really targeted canvassing. Not that I was against what we had done, like I think we really got to a lot, but it was very much just like a broad sweep, because the idea was get as many people as we can. But I wonder if we came with the same kind of informational campaign, same number of actual like knocking on doors, letter writing, like, but very targeted to the people that we pretty much know want it to pass. And then not have it be, you know, the regular big election day, the big, you know, November kind of roll around, where you generally have like, not everybody's, you know, turning out. And I would love to have it be like on the front page. It'd be great to have the levy like there. Because even though we did a lot of messaging around, like it's on the back, save the best for last, well, you know, I think, like people also got inundated with the ranked choice, which I 100%, as a government teacher, I fully support the idea of ranked choice voting and the ability, you know, it's a much more democratic system. But I think it was the first time people doing it, so they got like that double sheet, plus the ballot, plus her on the back. You know, we had like a good chunk of undervotes. Because I think some people just looked at that thing and they were like, you know, I knew I'll do it. I'd just be really curious, if, you know, what it would be like third try, you know, third time's the charm. If potentially in like in a spring attempt with the same level of stuff. I know. I'm trying to think of some other stuff.
I get what you're saying. When you look at it, you may not have to spend much on the contractor, but the public and printing and binding and all the stuff
Yeah.
that's about 25 to 30,000 just for that.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be this spring, but that's what you're thinking. I'm like, I know.
No, I
there's
meant
a-
as in, that's how much estimate it's gonna cost.
Yeah,
If I don't have a contractor, I still have to pay for the printing, the binding. Obviously, everything internal is done like by me and Andrea. As much as we can, but when you still have to print all the documents and mail them, a mailing is $6,000-7,000 a mailing.
yeah. So that's what I'm saying, like, obviously, like, it's gonna have to be when the district is able to do it again. I'm not saying like, you know, I don't expect that, but I'm just wondering if, I don't know. A different kind of strategy. I just checked out the draft of the resolution. And I like it. I think it's good. I would say whatever your final decision on, like the wording and things like that. When you do finalize it, brag about it, like put it out there, like I would do, like, put it out to the districts, put it out to families, put it out to staff. Really let them know that like, this is where we stand. I think people are wanting to hear you in a leadership position say the things they're worried about, people being more and more silent about. I think, you know, even though we don't feel like necessarily we have a lot of, you know, waving the magic wand and being able to make changes and make promises and think about a lot of stuff, because it is kind of like scary and on the horizon. I really do think it makes a difference when at least, you know, like to have power, like that we can, this is what we believe, this is what we don't, you know. I think that's critical. It just lets people know. Because I feel like there has been a feeling, especially like watching kind of certain things play out in the news and other things, other elements, other organizations kind of like just pulling back and just kind of like, you know, taking their hands away and almost making it look like they're disengaging because it's easier than to not engage. And I think just having a narrative, it's like, no, this is what we believe in, this is what we stand. Sentiment, you know, be damned from what's coming from other people. This is what we care about, and we're gonna do everything we care about them. So I think that's sending a message like that out. And I know there's gonna be some other things, and I think there's some other things coming up. with some colleagues. Maybe have pension protection, I think the board can do. I'll let them bring that when the time is right, but. Outside of that. Obviously, we're gonna hear about. Maybe some better-ish. Proposed or estimates from the governor's office. I have the day that we talked about, if you want to do the thing that kind of Emma was doing. So OEA Day is President's Day, it's the 17th of February, which we have off, but then it's also like teachers leave, spend that day. But it's generally a classic ground, so if that is available, it'd be cool for us to schedule the meeting. And my whole focus is just been that, just that kind of thing. So I think it'd be really easy for us, as the unified front, to get into, I think, Neuron. Neuron is the one that's in charge, or we could be in charge for that too. Yeah. We had a little bit of that with our legislative roundtable that we had, the beginning of this month. We kind of probing some ideas. I've also heard that the theme this next session is going to be transportation. And not education.
No, that's
But-
not here.
Yeah, I think we can. Change. I think we can
It's not-
push some things. in the connection.
That's not what
I haven't heard.
I haven't heard that at all.
I heard that from. Ricky Reese and,
That's not the only thing. but it's not
well, no.
necessary.
And Gorsuch was there, but then that's his baby, so I think that.
Yeah. but you're talking about their-
Yeah, I mean, so. Yeah, no, I think that's the.
February 17th, is that going to
You're
Salem?
down in Salem,
Okay.
so we drive down, I guess people like carpool down there. Go check in, you know, so.
I'll look at my, work calendar.
Outside of that, I think it's just trying to make workshops and stuff, and I know for our own staff. We're kind of also waiting to get. An understanding of where we are budget, because I do know that there are people. In certified that are. Worried, like they're bugging us, they're asking the union, like, I have a job that I could save. What are they cutting, or the levels of the cuts, so they're trying to. They're frantically coming at us. We're like, we don't know until the district knows, and the district doesn't know until they know. What the proposed budget is, and there's all these things, we just have to take a breath and kind of see, but it's really hard to tell somebody where their job's sometimes. Just be calm, just relax, and we'll get there, so that's always like that joke. But outside of that.
Any questions?
I don't have any questions. I have comments, as always. I don't want to go first, so we have some seats.
Well, looks like you're it.
Well, I'll say a few things about the campaign. We did do a vote for levy in spring a year ago. 2 years ago, we did do spring. We didn't have a lot of participation. We had a really great campaign this time. I agree with you. I think we need to keep that organization moving forward, into fundraising, because, we're gonna be making decisions as a board, it'll be very tough. Probably as tough as the decisions we made in 2018, my first year on the board, when we made cuts. So, we're gonna have a scenario and a story to share that will be pleasant if we go again in 2026. Well, you guys go, I won't be here. But, yeah, we're gonna have plenty to share about the horrendous decisions we had to make, right? So I think what we do have is we have a coalition built from this campaign. I think we also need to do an analysis of who voted and where. And, where the missed opportunities were and where we need to focus on canvassing. I think, even just being bigger in terms of, getting the word out, community, first page, the Oregonian, which, whatever, other pages too. And so I don't know if spring is, I don't know if this is the spring or December, or I don't know which one's better, but we had a lot of people voting. So it's just really disappointing. But there just needs to be more education about what's at stake. There needs to be more space for that. If that happens over the course of the year, maybe we try to get more people come to our budget communities to know what, have to know about budget. So they have an idea, instead of making it, you know, an assumption that we get all this money, and we're not using it properly. They need to understand how we utilize our budget, what we're required to do with certain line items, that kind of thing, and where that shortfall is and why we have a shortfall. So there needs to be a huge effort in educating this community on public schools and how they're funded. And, you know, how the impact of not funding your local school, that has effects years in advance. We're talking about everything from crime and research, everything in your community. It's a huge impact to not to underfund your school. So I'm in agreement. I think we need to, you know, kind of regroup, analyze, keep the fundraising going and have another campaign probably in 2026. So, and I don't know if that needs to be, in the spring or later in the year, but yeah, next year. The other thing I was gonna talk about. Knowing what's coming. Gosh, I hate when I do this. I don't know when I write when I'm like this. Know what's coming. I'm gonna write that. Yeah, in terms of like your membership and knowing what's coming, you know, we have some really tough decisions to make. And again, it's all about educating staff and community about the importance of these measures. I mean, it really wasn't what money we're asking for, but it's gonna impact a lot of people. And it's, you know, and we're a small district with little resources, so yeah, we just need to continue to educate our community about what's important. When funding, every penny we use it to benefit our kids, maybe you know that. So I think that I'm really doing a bad job with my notes tonight. I think that's it.
First of all, I just wanted to thank you for everything you did in support of the levy, getting it out to your members and gathering volunteers and helping with the coalition and the same. Yeah. I also think it's important that the next time that we move forward, that we talk about not just the impact that it'll have years from now, but the immediate impact, the underfunding your schools. Because in some people's mind, they're like, I'm this old, I don't care what happens 20 years from now. It's like, no, it's gonna have an immediate impact right here, right now, kind of the situation. One of the things I was curious about was the meeting you were talking about in February, Salem. Can you delve into like what is that something that we can help with? Is that something we can come down and be there for, or what's?
So it's OEA's like legislative day, or like the state union has like a rally on the steps and there's speakers, and there's, you know, like a ruckus and we make noise and, you know, yeah. And then we also book as much as we can time with legislators, you know, like one-on-one or whatever, like kind of meetings during that day to you know, fill the whole day, and that's from all over Oregon and members from all over Oregon go down there. Usually Harry about things like that, but the joint effort was me stealing an idea from Jeffrey Fuller, who's the president of Reynolds Educational Association, who's getting his board chair and his superintendent to come, all three of them, as a unified voice, saying, look, it's all of us. It's, you know, sometimes a relationship that can be, you know, strained because of bargaining, because of, you know, we're all kind of competing for different things, different ideas. All of us are here saying, like, we're unified in this message. We're unified in saying that we need your help. At the end of the day, we are all on the same side when it comes to the fact that like public education is coming from you, the legislator, and what the body approves and what we think is valuable. And I don't know what I think they're best, I mean, or like QEM and things like that and stuff. But I feel like for us, it's something that I've been pushing in a lot of other districts and a lot of presidents that I've talked to agree with the same conclusion, is the idea of legislating around the sped count. Just because my argument to the legislators, the people that I talk to, is that it is a very clear message to a person who unfortunately, while they make a lot of decisions about education, might not know a lot about education. Nobody knows about that. But like, my pitch has been, and what my pitch would be with the three of you, is like, here we are, where the state of Oregon says you can't have any more than 11% of your students be sped, and we'll give you funding beyond that point, which has absolutely no bearing on the need of those particular students. And from a federal level, we're held legally responsible for being able to cover the funding of those students without federal support for dollars, and it's all in the state, and the state's saying, so you only get this amount of money, regardless of how many people you have, but it's against the law if you don't do this thing,
Right.
which is absolutely ridiculous, right? And I feel like that's a very clear message of like, look, this is a problem that you understand, that you can share with fellow legislators, that it's not working, that it's broke. We can argue like what true QEM is and how do we calculate it, and is it calculated wrong or right? Well, you can get caught in the weeds of that too, but they're really also good at like juggling. Well, they give you a lot of, but if I tell you like our district's like almost 15% sped caseload. So we're just eating that 3. And again, we're not even talking about like need per student.
Right. We're just talking about getting any funding whatsoever.
Yeah, and then also like, we have legal mandates, unfunded legal mandates from a federal level, right? Like, so this is the thing where I think it's an easy message to be like, this is ridiculous. It doesn't make sense. It hurts districts. It very much hurts little districts, which is the majority of districts in Oregon. So figure it out. And I might even be that grumpy with them, so.
Sometimes it takes a little time.
Yeah,
I just wanna send my appreciation to you. For your efforts.
Questions, comments? I'll check my work.
Yeah, and it's a holiday that day, so I'll go.
as soon as I know, like, when they.
I know it's not a holiday for me at work, but
Yeah.
I'm sure I could take it up.
I'll bug, like I said, I'll bug, they're like, see, I might see it when they start, or if there's a window, or if I can just.
Okay.
Schedule a meeting, or however that works, we can figure that out, so.
I do want to say to Zach's comments, we will, like, ideally, the business meeting in January, have the data, which is the demographic breakdown of how people voted, which you mentioned, Sonia, so we can study more deeply. It's a great way to keep the coalition going. I've already kind of reached out to community leaders to say, I want to sit down and debrief what went well, how do we strategize? I'd love for the group to come back and make a recommendation to the board and say, hey, let's meet in spring of 26. It's a mathematical game. It really comes down to, can you get the people to show up? Because in those May elections, people just are less aware that an election's happening. So mathematically, the experts say your chances aren't as good because you got to get, the people have to show up, right? And the no votes generally show up because they are older voters. And we'll likely see in the demographic results that a lot of older voters in Park Rose with fixed incomes are like, nope, I don't want more taxes. No, thank you.
Unless you live in Maywood, then you hold it down.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah, Maywood, how you replicate Maywood's results, because it was, 70% and 30% if Maywood were voting, but obviously the broader community was 50, almost 50-50, really.
Yeah.
So close in that regard. So I do think it comes down to the timing, who we need, like, how do we and who do we target? And I also don't love the idea of like, well, we're gonna show them because we're gonna face really a huge budget crunch, because I feel like my job is to fight, even with Cherie, about like making sure that we're not taking things away from the kids who are here with us right now. Because that's the hard part about these decisions, as you know, Sonia, is making decisions about a coming school year where it's going to impact the people that do the work more wisely. So.
And I think there's also like strategic ways of figuring out when to save funds that do exactly that, right? Like, I agree, like, people need to understand that this is a consequence. So this is what happens now that we don't have this, but I also don't want to be like, well, then I'm gonna leave and take my students somewhere.
Yeah.
Like, I wanna,
Right.
like, it needs to be like, oh, we need to change that.
But I also wonder, like, the people that would need to see what the consequences, are they really the ones that have students here?
Yeah, that's a really good
There
question.
could be a lot of people that don't have students here,
Yeah.
that are those older voters, that are the ones
Right.
that would need to hear that.
Yeah.
It's the people that have students here, that were like, no, we voted yes.
Yeah.
And it could be also like, you know, people that don't have kids, right? Like, you know, I
Yeah.
think it'll be good to see like what it is. And I think that, because we do have the path and stuff, and if it's something that potentially we're looking into is like, you know, I'm sure you said, you know, the cost of it, well, maybe we can be during this couple years fundraising for that. Sorry.
Yeah.
Since time for his medicine. Fundraising for that, to be able to cover those costs, you know, printing and all, you know, all that stuff that we have to do and stuff.
And I do think it's a really important thing to highlight in this legislative session, that we're still basing some of the school funding on who can pass a levy and who can't.
Yeah,
And,
exactly.
and we're not even, we're also talking about facilities,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And the gap just gets wider. We were talking about athletics earlier, right? Like the gaps get wider when certain communities can pass operational levies and capital bonds. And here, we're like feeling good, like I love the energy, the effort that the people in the district, you know, 5,200 and some people. And that's more than the number of families we have said, I want to support this. So that says something.
Yeah.
So now it's just about how we go back at it and how we communicate this budget. So if we've got to cut corners, I think we just need to be really explicit, because I don't want to have to like show everybody like how much we can bleed to just demonstrate like we need, you know, I would prefer not to ask for a levy. I would prefer that the legislature fully fund us.
Agreed.
They make corrections to age-old things like the 11% cap. The 11% cap was put in place in 1991. So I was still in college.
I was second.
Okay, I was in kindergarten.
Second grade.
Just about to become a teacher.
I'm 41.
I was. oh,
I was a lot of different places.
But
I'm older than you all, but still.
yeah, we shouldn't have to pass a levy for us to, you know,
Right.
for to make it, like our legislature.
It's all-
They're the ones that need to help us out. I mean, we have districts that have a levy and they're still struggling,
Yeah.
you know, and they're still
Have
committed.
levies way bigger.
And still have budget cuts and they still, you know, so it's just like, we, yes, we need to, yeah, put the word out there. Thank you.
I feel like I say politics.
Good conversation, important conversation.
Yes. Do we have an OSCA monthly report?
No report.
No report, all right. No in-person public comments?
Correct.
All right, next item is our consent agenda. Student reps are welcome to make a second or a motion through, though they are not voting members of the board, but you can make a motion if you have any questions. Do I hear? I'm so sorry, I always get stuck here. Do I hear a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda?
I move to approve tonight's consent agenda.
Do I hear a second? Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. The motion to approve tonight's consent agenda passes. We have our department reports by our CFO, Shirley Lewis. Budget updates.
Fun stuff.
Fun stuff. Actually, I've been waiting for this.
You want to start with the one pager or the slides?
And they kind of go together, so.
Okay.
So the slides in this kind of overlap a little bit, so we'll just go from there. So the very first part,
Oops.
I can sign in, but I don't, I was wrong. The first number, as you can see, as Michael's been telling you, is $11.359 billion. Last year, we were at 10.2. So that's 11.4 increase. And of that number, there's two things that make up that number. 515 million of that is the increase in current service level, which basically current service level means what I need to operate every day, right? So that's what the governor said, that there was an adjustment to that in $515 million. Now, there's another adjustment of 600 million because of PERS. And those two basically represent $1,115 million of that total variance that you see. So when we talk about the first one of current service level, most districts, that's not gonna be enough for current service level. The PERS increase was done because if you've read a newspaper in Oregon the last month, it's been in every week or every day, the PERS rate increases. Our district, it ranges in districts that don't have a PERS bond. If you don't have a PERS bond, your rate of increase is roughly 1% or less than 1%. If you have a PERS bond, your rate of increase go from 2% up to 16% increase. Now, the idea, and Sonia's looking at me, Sheree, that doesn't make any sense. That's not what you sold me. Because if you got a PERS bond, my rates were supposed to go down where everybody else's went up. Well, the difference is investments went to the tank this last year. And payroll rates have skyrocketed, as we've all known, as we've gone through union and strikes and all those things, and they will continue to go up. And remember, PERS is based on an actuarial, and if you like numbers like I do, actuarials are based on 2 years in arrears. So this rate of increase that we see now for our district for tier 1 and 2 is gonna be 4.3%. OPSRP will be 3.9, roughly 4%. You're gonna see this rate of increase for the next roughly 4 years. This rate of increase will be effective 25, 26, and 26, 27. And that is already on paper. We don't have a choice. So that for our district is just around $1 million increase in payroll costs. So when you think about our district that had a smaller increase compared to there's a lot of them that are 10, 12, 16%. Just imagine what that would be for this district. So we were lucky, we didn't get hit that bad. So, so that's what you see in the governor's budget that makes up that current service level gave us some. So in essence, when you look at it, most of it thinking current service level should have been basically the 11 and give us another for 600 million for PERS, but unfortunately she split it between the two, so. Now the bullets below are kind of itemized what the governor did. And as you guys know, she focused on education, homelessness. Those were her two biggest things that she had. But in the education budget, it includes higher education and the state school fund. And the total education budget in her budget, if you read it, and it's 490 pages, if you like to read budget books. You all thought mine was bad with 200 pages, haha. So her budget for education is $17.4 billion. Education is $11.4 billion. So we represent about 65.3% of that budget. And the biggest thing, when you look at that budget, one of the biggest kickers that we were supposed to get more marijuana money, more money from the corporate tax, and more money from lottery. Right now, 86.8% of that $11 billion is coming from the general fund. You would think more would come from marijuana and the lottery money, but it's not. So I don't know if COSA and everybody's going to start pushing on that, but that's one big thing. Additional investment was at early literacy. This year, we got an early literacy grant of roughly $200,000. that funds the elementary, EA for each elementary for the kindergarten class. Now, that is projected to go up. We don't know exactly what that's gonna do for us. But we know that's gonna have a little bit more investment going in the future. And that is for us sitting in the private grants, because that's where that comes from. Summer grant, I know we have been asking not to give us the summer grant, but actually give it in the state school fund. But she's promising 75 million over the 2 academic years, so you'd split that 75 million into 2 different years. Then we got basically capital improvement money, we basically get none of that. Because, we don't have a capital bond, and that money is only allocated to districts that have a bond. So of that money, we don't really get much of that investment. And that's the way the legislation was written, that you have to have a bond, and if you have a bond, they subsidize you based on the size of your bond. So those who are able to get a bond, you get subsidized and get additional increment. Let's say, when we had our first bond, that was one of the first years they had it, we got additional $2 million and our $63 million for us to do our bond. Some districts are getting up to $10 to $12 million additional funds. Next one, high school success, I call it Measure 98. It went up about 4.93%, let's round it up to 5% roughly. For us, it'll be a little tricky, because when they built this, we thought our enrollment at the high school was gonna go up. Right now, we're about maybe right at level, maybe a little lower. So it's based on your enrollment, so it's tricky how much we're gonna get. They've made changes in how we can spend the money. We have to spend the money now in the academic year that we're allocated, so we're not allowed carryover funds. So that makes it a little bit more tricky for us. This is the first year, so Andre and the high school have to really try to figure out where we are and whether or not those expenses are gonna come in. So it's gonna be interesting how that plays out, because there was a lot of arguing of the new way they're doing things. Hunger-free school grant programs, and that basically gives us a little bit of subsidized money in the CEP, which is a community eligibility program from the federal government. Right now, the federal government gives us about 70 cents on a dollar for us to be able to feed. The state gives us a subsidy. And we'll tell you, in the last 2 years, the general fund or ESSER has had to subsidize our nutrition fund, because we've not made enough revenue to be able to feed all the students at the cost of the staff. So it's something that we are looking at and hoping that this slight increase for the hunger program might help us in the future. To expand education and training pathways to enhance behavioral health workforce, there wasn't a lot of education on that. I'm assuming that's gonna be similar to what we have with the $8.9 million we have for the SPED stipend. We're gonna have some more money that's associated with behavioral health, but it's not articulated, unless Michael and Andre, you know exactly what that is, that I don't know. I tried to find more detail on it. I couldn't find much, so I said, well, I'll just look stupid. That's okay, I'm okay with it. And the new lottery bonding, that's basically leveraging some federal money and connecting our Oregon broadband program. And it will be interesting when the new legislation gets in, because the FCC is going to be making changes to the E-rate program, which is where we get our money for our phones and connectivity and technology. If they make those changes, I think that might change. So they're connected to the federal broadband system, which is E-rates. Now, we don't get a lot from E-rate, but for our our type 2, or what I call capital programs, we get about $20,000-$30,000, but we do get money for our phone system. Now, if that goes away, which is one of the things they're looking at, that might change what we get, and it won't be material for us. We're not a big E-rate district like my friend in Texas. She gets $12 million a year in E-rate. I maybe get 80,000 a year, not a whole lot, so. And it's too early to tell what the exact fiscal impact will be, the proposed numbers. It is, because right now, these may change. This is the governor's proposed. When it goes into legislation and they start doing it the Ways and Means, they can start carving away with this. It could go up or it could go down. Like any budget, it is a point in time and it will change. We had there are some notable reductions in the budget. Student Success Team Initiative. It seems to be everybody's favorite place to go get money is the SIA. So, I think the superintendents are really trying to push back on all the things that's being taken out of the SIA. I'm not in the superintendent's meeting, but I know I tell Michael a lot of things, and I think that's what they're talking about, Michael. Is that true?
Yes, it is true.
We have recovery schools, and that's basically, we initially had two. There was one up here, and I think the other one was at Lake Oswego, and they were adding another one. That was students that have a dependency on alcohol. And then you had slots, and in the ADM, you were allowed a 2.0 weight, additional weight for a student, where if you're a sped student, you got a 1.0 weight. But if you were in this program, you got extra funding for that. At this point, it's under the state program, but not a lot of funding, or it's, from the last time I heard, all the slots were taken. But there's not any slots available that I know of. I asked, our sped director if he had anybody that he was referring during the first part of the year, and he said no. So it'll be interesting where that goes, because it is in its second year that it started. So it's a very nice program to have for kids that are struggling in that area. Basically, they talked about in this one where the education operations budget, that's ODE's budget, they're gonna be reduced. But when you look at their overall budget for the Department of Education, their staffing have gone up 200 FTE in the last 2.5 years. So, but they've added a lot of reporting requirements and.
We had people there to give our few people more work to do.
Yes, so they got a small reduction in their budget, not much. So those are the biggest things that I wanted to focus on. And if we want to go to the slides, we can talk about the slides, and it's kind of a similar presentation that these are just information that Michael took from the COSA presentation from a debrief of the governor's budget and a little bit different details. I'll sign in again.
Oh, man, sorry.
One of the biggest things I think to focus on it, one of the comments is the third bullet down, the state dollars. When the governor's budget, she basically allocated every penny she had of the budget into the state revenue coffers. So there wasn't a lot of left that the governor had that she was putting in her cushions or reserve or whatever. Like I said, homelessness, mental health, education, housing were all her main focuses. There's a transportation package, but Lord knows what that exactly is going to be. We got a carve out in transportation last year, and I have not seen any success from that. Michael, do you have any more on that one that I know of?
Nope.
Yeah, state school fund, we talked about that. Student Success Act or SIA. Like I said, there'll be an increase for us, but it's unknown because how our number of students have not actually gone up. I think because of our 7th grade is going to move up to 8th grade, 7th grade may be a little higher enrollment than what we had the year before, Michael. We might get a little bit more. Now that I'm looking at enrollment, might be. OSME, which is basically the capital budget money, the bond money, that's none of us. The only thing that we're trying to get in there is that carve out piece of $100 million. We're trying to get a seismic evaluation grant that is $35,000 to $50,000 per school. And that just pays for a contractor to come out to do a seismic analysis, but we've been denied the last 2 times for Shaper. So we've tried, but we haven't been able to get it. They increased the money for EIECSE. Our program is actually housed through David Douglas, and we pay money through our budget to pay for that because they are the contractor that houses that. Like I said, summer, split it between 2 years, early literacy. And that may be adding more slots for pre-K. I'm not quite sure what that's gonna be, or is that gonna be K through 3? Nobody could tell me exactly, because there has been early literacy. We've been able to add another preschool in the district this last year. But whether or not that's gonna give any more money to the pre-K, or is it just gonna be K through 3? There's some things that need to be added to it. There's some things that need some additional advocacy. And that one of them is the ESD, Educational Services Technology Assistance Program. And wildfire impact aid, I believe they were supposed to have an emergency meeting at the governor's office of legislation. That was supposed to be this week or last week. I have not heard the outcome to that. And the thing that I want to focus on, and like it was brought up earlier about special education and the funding, whether I want to sped cap or I want to increase the high cost disability, ECSE, and RIS. In our system, sped cap is great, but the district would make more money if they would do high cost disability. Because when they do the 15%, and if you understood where where special education goes, right now we're at 11%. And then there's basically another line, you get above 11%, right? And those two should be close to what your special education count is. If they increase ours to 15%, and we're roughly 15%, then that above 15% basically is going to go to 0. So when I was talking to Michael today, it would net maybe 50 to 60 ADM increase for the district. Now you multiply that by the average cost of a student, let's say $11,000, we're not going to get a lot of return. But if you looked at the high cost disability, which is all the students that exceed $30,000, if we took it at full cost, we would be well over $3 million more, where the other one is 500 to 600,000. If we would net, we'd be about $1 million gain. So when I look at it at a financial gain, the high cost disability gives us more money, because in the high cost disability per the state numbers, there are 6,335 kids. And on their analysis, all they get to give out is 55 million. Because that's the high cost disability limit. And when you look at the high cost disability limit, the net cost minus the 30,000 per kid, the 30,000 per kid is $190 million. Add the $190 million plus the net cost of 110, you're sitting at that $300 million. And they're only giving us 55 million. Okay, so where would the best bang for the district's buck? It's high cost disability. Because right now we have almost 40 to 50 kids that are on that program, because we pulled in so many kids in the district in the 3 Russell classrooms. So those are the things Michael and I know Andreas are focusing on, which is group homes, because our group home numbers are out the roof, and the cost of ECSE, those numbers have been climbing about 10 to 15% a year. So special education is a big thing, because right now we're between 8 and 9% that we get from the federal government. We only get about $500,000 in IDEA money. And we had just shy of $2 million in high cost disability last year. I got back 351,000. So when we look at that number, so that's the thing when Michael and I were looking at it, where is the best, where do you want to focus it? Now, whether the governor or legislation would be able to bump up that high cost, I doubt it, but it's a wish list. I love wish lists. I just never get them. But those are the things that are associated that I think we need to focus on, because special education in our district last year increased 14.7%. This year it's looking to be over 15% increase over what we actually had in MOE.
And keep in mind that the governor's budget, it's the 11.4 billion. That budget does not include what the additional cost to increase the 11% cap and high cost disability. So in the big picture, we need to plant the seed for both. But Shree's just highlighting, like, if you gotta pick one, because I was asking her the question the other day, right? Like, which one would we actually get more bang for our buck? And high cost disability significantly helps us more so, and especially in the next biennium. But the goal is increase the cap, increase high cost disability, fully cover high cost disability, and that's millions of dollars for us versus just hundreds of thousands of dollars, which makes a huge difference. So governor budget, great, 11.4, really good start. But then let's say the legislature adds another 300 million. We want that 300 million to go to a specific area, whether it's the cap, high cost disability. We're gonna stimulate the conversation among our colleagues of like, should we just focus on one? Politically, I think it's important that our legislators understand the dynamic issue of special education costs and how quickly they're rising. Sheree told me today, we spend about 9 million in this budget on special education, and what are we getting reimbursed for?
4.9 from the state school fund and federal, and the 351,000 in high cost disability. So we're only getting about 54%, I think is what, 54% of our total special education costs being refunded from everywhere around. And that 9 million is probably gonna go up because my increase in group homes. Because my number is based on a budget number.
Yeah, thanks, Sheree.
Do we have another page, Ms. Hazel? Okay, and like I said, the actuarial or the PERS rates are done by an outside audit firm called Milliman. Milliman brings in the numbers, and they are what they are. You don't get really to make any judgments on it. The only thing that you technically benefit from, should have been your side accounts that have you've agreed, basically, like you have your house. You grow and you pay it down, and you have an escrow that you sit there and you have something that benefits your house because you paid it down. Similar to us for PERS. Unfortunately, it didn't work for us that have a PERS bond. But we normally save about $500,000 to $750,000 in PERS. This year, our number is down to less than 250,000 on the two bonds that we have. But at least it's something. I'm thankful for something. And those were the rate increases that I talked about. And those will be my rates, the 13.48 and 10.3 will be my same rates for 26-27. So as we do our bargaining, those will be things I have to plan for. Any questions? I'm always a Debbie Downer.
No, it's a lot to unpack. Do I share a question?
I do, just out of curiosity, Sheree, are you aware of, in the last 2 years, what percentage the dollar has gone down as far as buying power?
In what perspective? In my buying power?
The reason I asked the question, we're looking at an 11% increase over the budget 2 years ago, but in the last 2 years, with inflation and everything else skyrocketing, is that 11% actually a good amount?
No, my salaries have increased about 8 to 9%. Okay, my liability insurance last year increased 16% something. This year it's proposed at 15.5 to 17%. My fuel costs and everything have gone up about 9%. You know, the cost of buying wheels and stuff for the vehicles, the utility cost. And we're doing everything we can for energy efficiency. Healthcare is the only thing that's kind of stayed. It has no choice. OEB says it's 3.4, right? But the 3.4 is based on what the state gives you, they can increase, but the rate of a pool plan can increase. Because we had one plan that increased above the 3.4.
The reason I asked that question is because I feel like one of the conversations, Michael, that we had in the past in regards to the previous biennium and the budget that was there. Was that, you know, the amount that was originally presented was less than the 10.2. And when the 10.2 came out, it was like, okay, that's good, but actually it wasn't good. It was far below what was needed. So an 11% increase is, I mean, it's good that it's increased. But it's not really more money than we got in the previous
Yeah,
budget.
it is the, best way I kind of describe it in my mind is it's the floor.
And so,
And the floor is kind of sunk in some places because it will not meet all of our expenses.
my hope is that when whoever it is, whether it be us as the board during our advocacy day, whether it be the superintendents or whoever is going to be presenting to the legislature in regards to education, to not go in there and say, you know, it was great to see that increase, but really to say, this is not nearly enough. To have, because if I feel like if the initial conversation is, I was really happy to see that now, so that's a great increase, then you're gonna have legislatures saying, you know, they're happy at where they're at.
Yeah.
So really, it's a win if we move forward that amount, and really it should be, this is not, especially when you couple it with the fact that really that increase isn't an increase because half of it's going towards, and half of it's going towards the PERS. It's not going towards education funding in general. And I also feel like it would be good to send some messaging in regards to the way that those three things that Governor Kotek's gonna be looking at, the homelessness, the unhoused.
Yeah.
Mental health and education, I feel like that needs to be flipped. Because with the education, you're gonna have better mental health, you're gonna have fewer unhoused, like the education needs to be. That needs to be the starting point, that needs to be on the first page of her. You know, like, I hope that we can send that message to her, like, no, this is the starting. You know, like, and the fact that it is also not a down the road, like years from now, this educate, you know, if we fund now, the education is gonna help mental health years from now, no, it's gonna help it right now.
Yeah.
So, sorry, little,
No, that's
I'll get off my soapbox, just the
Okay.
things that I know.
good. Thank you, get on the soapbox.
The report on Measure 98 money, and how well the high school and things they've done with it, they focused on the ninth grade, whatever. There was a good report in the state report on Measure 98, and how we spent money on track, so there is good use of money and how we can do things, and yeah. You're preaching.
To the choir.
I have a few questions and comments. I think the thing that's the most difficult to explain to legislators or people kind of looking, not aware of what's happening in education. Is that they see that 54% of the budget is allocated to us. And they're like, oh, you get the biggest piece of the pie, you get a lot of money. You know, 11.36 billion, that's a lot of money, that's the floor, that's the beginning. So that's what they're gonna start with, but that's certainly not what we're gonna end up. I think last year it was 11 million something, it was a little bit less, but we ended up at 10.2, we were grateful for that. I think
The governor's number wasn't 11 at the time it was proposed. We didn't go down from the Ways and Means, we kind of stayed even, I believe.
yeah, I think we were a little bit closer, but
Yeah.
I mean, this is pie in the skies, this is great, but that's not what makes this the floor. People are gonna fight this. Like, I don't believe we'll get 11.36. We'll get more than we got last time, but it's just a floor at the beginning. I think the way to move the needle forward, we have so many, in legislature that all they're seeing is that 4%. They're saying surplus in the budget, saying you guys are getting so much money, that you're mismanaging what you do. They need to know the stories. They need to understand. Park Rose has, you know, the option of having the cap, the high disability. We need to start sharing our stories of what we're doing with our money.
The
And
increase
that's
in incident reports, the increase of workers' comp,
Right.
those are things that are really hurting us right now, because we have quite a few that are out.
But
But the current service level is an average of 197 districts plus ESDs, and we all don't operate the same way,
Exactly.
so it's not fair.
It isn't there. No, so they need to have, they need to have a visual, what that money does for our district, for our size. The challenges, the requirements that we have of unfunded mandates to support our students with our general funding, and all how that's impacting. I guess anyways, well, you know, how many times I've been in DC, I'm sat with Berkeley and White and said, look, we need this federal money. This is, and I've been sharing the story of the Park Rose, I think. At some point, the needle might be moved forward for federal money, but state level, we all have an opportunity. Everybody on this board can either do a virtual Zoom, and whenever it's time to give testimony, we need to be talking about sharing our stories of Park Rose. Our student representatives, most powerful voice, they need to be doing that too. We need to be arming them with stories of impact and the needs of our community and what we're doing to provide services to support our students with high needs. Because they continue to add what is considered a disability, it's an unfunded mandate, they're not giving us enough resources, right? To support those students, so we are continually underwater. No matter what that first number looks like, it's incredible how we're just continuing.
Students in the group home, it's a cost of over $1 million
Yeah,
for 8 kids.
Yeah, we would probably need about 600 to 700 million to cover the wish for the CAP and the high cost disability. So you're looking at about 12 billion.
yeah. I think my other question, you'd mentioned that the high school success funds are not renewable every year. Are we using all those funds every year, and how much is that?
We use all the funds and we get just about $1 million in high school success. But the new change is the grant was basically July to September. So you had a 15-month period, which emulates and mirrors what we do with federal grants. Federal grants initially have a 15-month period to allow you for that things that happen in the summer. You send people to training or things happen or you do things. Now that's not going to be, because they said the legislation, when it was developed, had to be within the academic year, which means a 12-month period.
So we have less time to spend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, okay. And then the federal nutrition fund, are you have any concerns with the federal level? With the
Yes.
potential of our new administration moving things or?
It's a whole nother worry.
I mean, I'm a little worried. I don't watch the news. I mean, you guys do have some little concerns
They,
about.
they are wanting to remove the community eligibility program, which basically allows all students to use. Based on the percentage that you're able to get in your district if you exceed a certain threshold. To them, it's costing them money, but it doesn't fully fund a free meals for districts. The state has been picking up the difference to get us to 90% reimbursement rate. Okay, and that's where that state has their portion of the nutrition. That gets us to the 90%. The feds gets us to about 70%. Okay, so they fill in that gap, but there's still 10%. And when we made changes to the union agreement a year and a half ago to nutrition or to the classified, in there, anybody that was 10 hours or more could get insurance. And that basically, there was a lot of people in nutrition, which therefore increased their salaries and benefits. That was not initially done. It should be self-sustaining fund, but it's not right now.
What would if there was a shift in the new administration, how can we see that?
I mean, I think that's a question that is just lurking right now. I do think that we'll have pretty near future board meetings to talk a little bit more. Because a lot of it right now is speculation and a lot of it's like things that are verbally being said. All of the grants are within the Elementary Secondary Education Act, so in my mind, it would take legislative action with a very slim majority in the House to overturn things like Title I. So although you're hearing like Sheree and I have heard that some of the title programs are gonna be eliminated, the budgets are gonna go down. We don't really have confirmation because sadly, education is not a priority at the federal level. And so those conversations aren't had until they're working at the wee hours of the night, finishing up the federal budget. That will continue to be a fight to keep balanced.
And I still have my contacts. talked with him last week at the federal level at AESA and ASBO. Cause I was a lobbyist for so long for them. I'm on and I call them and they're emailing me every time they have something in case, so I am more on top of it than maybe some of the people at the state.
Yeah. I worry.
I'm watching out for it.
Oh, I know. Different thing here.
I just thinking about how important these relatable, clear stories are going to be when folks are talking to legislators, and how like creating that, some sort of personal connection to the story and really putting it out. And I think, I don't think we go in like being, I'm grateful for where the budget is. I don't even think you necessarily talk about that. I think you just say like, these are the needs we have. This is the gap we have. This is the impact of that gap. I just feel like we have to be very unified in the stories and make it very personal. Cause that's the things that they prefer.
Example, I had a teacher today who filed for an appointment in the summer. And they got approved. But teachers were not eligible to get it. No, because they were guaranteed a job. There's been a lot of unemployment, a lot of the things that we've been having. Our rates in insurance are skyrocketing because of things around us that affect us because of a pool. There was a $10 million settlement at one of the schools, smaller schools in the state, that was gone to an incident with a teacher that had gone, or a student that's gone, that's now suing the district. We have other districts that have issues, and because we are a pool, as they have to cover those things, and it may be one day us, I hope not while I'm here, but those things affect pool rate, and that's why our insurance rates are going up. We have to think about that as we train people and educate people in the state, not just superintendents, but business managers of how they need to learn and advocate for things, because business managers in my profession aren't the people that typically are out there doing the public speaking, because their superintendents don't allow them to do the public speaking. And they don't speak in front of legislation. There's only about 4 of us that do. And they're tired of hearing from us, I can tell you that. But there's a lot of unfunded mandates that we have that are costing us all the time.
Question?
They're like, please get off this topic of money.
Millions
and millions of dollars.
I think for, kind of, how do we, cause Advocacy Day is gonna come up soon, February 17th is gonna be here soon. How do we start planning now on sharing our story? Like, what does that look like? And then being able to then work with our student reps as to how do we share that, because they're, they are the voice, right? As a board, we can also, of course, we're all unified and share the message, but as we share our story, one of the things that I will always remember that Efren has always from LPC has always mentioned, just as you share the need, always share the great things that are happening at Park Roads, right? So, but like, how do we start that now? So that like that when that time comes, like we have this amazing PowerPoint deck or whatever you want to call it, that we can be like, here, this is Park Roads. And these are the great things that are happening. These are the things that we're lacking. These are, like, how do we like do that? How do we get that started? Or do we have something already started?
Well, I do, I agree with Mariah in that. I do think we need to refine the story. And part of that is Shree's working really hard with her team right now to get to more precision in terms of like, what are those potential impacts? So we're just in deep discussion about like,
I'm really close.
are there places, so we can at least tell like, here's the gap or the potential gap, which is probably gonna be a range, because Shree's making an estimate based on the numbers we think we're gonna see.
Right.
And we're basing it on what the governor's proposed and the impact it has on that. So I think that's one thing. I think the other part is to help more deeply educate around like our story in high cost disability, our story in the special education cap. Because if we ask for those additional dollars, we want to say, hey, in our district, it would, for high cost disability, we would get another $1 million. Sadly, that just covers the deficit we're gonna face from PERS. So that kind of washes it out.
Right.
But again, if we don't get that money, we already have that $1 million deficit that Sheree didn't necessarily have plans for. Because we want to increase the pay of our staff. We want our nutrition staff to have insurance. They hadn't had insurance this whole time. So guess what? It's hard to hold on to nutrition people when they don't have good benefit package or good pay. So I think it's really refining the story. I will just say out loud now, we've got some complexities to deal with because on my legislative update, our East County Representative Stacy Michelson just took a job with OSBA.
Yeah.
So she's not gonna be with us and we're in a little bit of a jam because our legislative kind of representative who typically organizes our legislative
Yeah.
day is not going to be here after the winter break. So we problem solved as superintendents the other day. There is the potential like we bring somebody in kind of to pinch hit. Problem is that person doesn't necessarily have the relationships that are needed at the Capitol. So we're still kind of in the midst of problem solving that. But what I hope to give you is a one pager that just says, here's our story that we want to tell and here's our ask. Because we'll be able to tell you, like, I honestly think if we're anything below 12 billion, we're not gaining really any ground. We're still gonna be like, Andre, we have to shift the student investment account around and move more money in from the general fund. We've got to cut this, we got to cut that. And I would prefer not to be there, but the reality is if we stay at 11.4, we're gonna be behind the eight ball. And that's where we, again, I think we advocate within the community and the coalition of people that voted for the levy. And I agree, get them in the room during the budget meeting, that they're engaged in that conversation to understand, more importantly, just like, what's the gap and why is there a gap? Special education, we already know is a factor and we don't want to do it in a shaming and blaming way that it's like special education students' faults. But we want to provide them the services and we're not getting the funding for it. So we need to, reiterate that. We do have Brenda and I met with Senator Pham. I met with Representative Tran today. There's another meeting tomorrow night with Representative Valderrama to just get the story going, and then there will be follow-up opportunities for the board as we head into the legislative session. And students, right? Like, I think that I can organize a day where I just take students with me, and it doesn't have to be February 17th. Because they will allow us to do that.
And hopefully whoever we get in is a temporary, MESD. I worked a lot with legislative people. So hopefully I could work with them and get them to speak.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, next item on the agenda is Mr. Goodrow and teaching and learning.
Never been better subject than mine, but.
He's like, I'm talking about that.
A symptom.
Absenteeism.
Thank you all for letting me present tonight. This is a follow-up on some of the data we shared in November, going over the school report cards. And then was talking about a lot of the attendance rates and where we were. Just wanted to give you just a background of where we're at and give you some definitions. Also look at some local data, look at some of the root causes, and then also get the students, hear from the students, get their voice and their opinion. and some of this absenteeism and a regular attendance conversation, and then allow time for you all to ask questions. So just the first slide is just want the background, kind of, definitions. So there's two definitions that the state, looks at. So chronic absenteeism is missing 10% of the school year. And regular attenders is the other 90% of the wheel. So regular attenders are the students that attend 90% or more throughout the school year, or the number of days that they're enrolled in. So just some data, some stats for you. So one in every 6 student in Oregon is considered chronically absent. And currently, this past school year, our district rate at school, in Park Road School District was 47. So 47% of the students in Park Road School District were considered chronically absent. So why does this matter? So just looking at each grade level, just for elementary schools, students who attend regularly from kindergarten, from K to 3, are more likely to read on grade level. So by the time they take their first state test, they have a better chance of reading on grade level. Back in November, when we shared some of the reading data, you were able to see where we were current time on state testing. At the middle school level, by 6th grade, absenteeism is one of 3 signs that students may drop out in high school. And by the time students reach the 9th grade, attendance is a better predictor of graduation rate than 8th grade test scores. So this is why attendance is so important and why it matters. And then just another point, so it all adds up. So every day counts towards our students' journey to discovery and growth. So every day that students are with us, regardless if they feel like the lesson is boring, it is an opportunity for them to be amongst peers in a learning environment and getting fed information, whether they know it or not. It's information that they can rely on and draw back on later on in life. And then missing 10% of school, as you all know, can lower test scores and student achievement. And then this is just, so monthly attendance. So just putting this out there as another visual. So in a month, so it's roughly 2 days per month. So if the student misses 2 days per month, then they're at that 10%, that 10% absenteeism rate. And then that comes out to equate to about 18 days per year. Get the students at that 18%. And then just another visual. So all that time adds up. So 18 days is that 10% threshold. So that's roughly 108 hours, 6,480 minutes. And if we look at our 7-period day at the high school, that adds up to 126 periods. So 50-minute periods. So those time does add up. I would put in there if a student was absenteeism rate was at 25%, what that would look like, that's 45 days. And also if the student was missing 50% of the time, how that time adds up. And this just shows kind of, a lot of our schools are using a red, yellow, green stop sign system to identify students along the threshold of absenteeism. So if students are at that 18+ day, greater risk of falling behind and 20% less likely to graduate from high school. If students are in that warning sign, even though they're 10 to 15 days, that warning sign, 15 absences per year equals 1 full school year missed by 12th grade. So if a kid goes through K through 12 and continues with 15 days per year, that adds up to 1 full school year miss. And then 9 days or fewer, consider good attendance, best chance of developing grade level skills and success now and in the future. So if we break it down to local data. So this is our attendance over time. So now we're switching to regular attenders. So this is the percent of students who attend 90% or better. So this is, looking at the 90% or better regular attenders, looking back, so when we came out the pandemic in 2021-22 school year to where we're at now. So obviously, across the board, we saw a huge dip in that first year coming out the pandemic, just the stricter guidelines and students feeling comfortable back into the school space. And we slowly seen an increase, in the past year of elementary school. But what we see is a common thread and common theme throughout this presentation. You're gonna see as kids matriculate through our system, the graduation rate slowly, the attendance rate slowly declines for our regular attenders. And this is just another look at the pie of our elementary school, middle school and high school regular attenders. And then this is just broken down by ethnicity. So our ethnicity of regular attender rate. So American Indian, Alaska Native, about 23%. Asian students are 71%, African American, Black African American, 52%, Hispanic Latinos, 48, multiracial, 49, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islanders, 35, and white students are 58. So you can see on this attendance data, a lot of our students of color are affected by the attendance rate. And then this is one we found interesting. So this is just looking at the average attendance rate of last year per grade level. So now so the average attendance rate across the board from last June, September to June, per grade level. So you can see, we talked about the trend that as kids matriculate to our system, how the rate drops. So you can see we hit a peak in fourth grade last year with 90% of the students attending regularly on a daily basis. But then by the time we get to the high school and look at the 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade, we see a steady decline where it dips all the way down to 81.7% as a low. So think about some root causes. So there's 4 categories that we look at. It's really barriers, what keeps you out of school. And coming out the pandemic, it was family responsibility, high students working, have jobs. Also continuing factors are chronic illnesses, poor transportation, housing and food insecurities, system of involvement at the school level. Another one that impacts, another root cause is negative school experience. I don't want to go to school is usually the quote. Coming out the pandemic with social anxiety, pair challenges, including drama, bullying, and teasing, struggle with academic and behavior. And continuing factors are biases, discipline, suspension practices, undiagnosed disabilities, and caregiving. Caregivers have a negative impact on that experience. So teachers or interaction with adults had a negative experience on students' experience at school. Another root cause is lack of engagement. What is the point? So coming out the pandemic with lack of school connection, didn't see a connection between attending school and outcomes. And continuing effects is lack of challenging or culturally responsive instruction or enrichment opportunities, doing poorly in class based off attendance. And then last one is misconceptions. I did not realize. So coming out the pandemic assumes, so this is also from the adult end, assumes students may stay home for any symptoms of illness, don't have to be at school in order to succeed in school. And continuing factors are absences are only a problem, that there are unexcused, lose track and understanding total absences, attendance only matters in older grades, and then suspensions don't count as absences. So these are some misconceptions that are across the board. So another local factor is myself and Mr. Lopes had an opportunity to go speak to the wonderful leadership students not too long ago. And Mr. Lowe's proposed a question of what brings you to school to the whole leadership classroom. And what keeps you away from school? So going from the top down is the most popular responses we got from students. So what brings you to school? Friends were the most popular among the responses. Along with future and grades, sports. Sorry, that's not falling behind. Parents, school events, support system, clubs, resources. So really speaking to that connectedness around school. And what keeps you away? Starting with the highest response was stress and mental health, teachers, peers, transportation, health, not enough sleep, taking care of families, job, burnout, block days, threats or potential threats. Think about what can happen when you're at school, college planning, students that who moved or forced out of the community due to gentrification, houselessness, and unmotivated food and environment. So I would you heard from me, but I really want to allow our student board members the opportunity to voice kind of what they see amongst for themselves, but also their peers on why potential absentee rates are what they are. So I just have a couple of questions for you all. I know we talked about some of those aspects in the presentation, but if you all don't mind sharing, just what is the biggest reason you miss school, or biggest reason why your peers might miss school, or what you're hearing from your folks?
I think just go down the line. I think my biggest reason for missing school, I think, is just like my family responsibility. So I remember last year it was pretty difficult for me to come to school just because I had work every weekend. So just like that Monday morning, it was just like horrible to try and go. And I think like my schedule was just so packed that I would miss days of school just to try and breathe, just to try and like relax, or to just take a day off, because every day I had something to do, or I was just really stressed out. So I think now it's kind of similar. It's just like a lot of responsibilities that I have outside of school that are kind of burning me out.
Okay, I don't miss a lot of school actually. I'm like here almost every other day. But like, if I do miss school, it's usually just because I'm like trying to like de-stress myself, like with Natalie said. I'm just trying to like calm down. Cause I also have like a jam-packed schedule. I work a lot of times too. So I'm just trying to like relax myself for a second and just like get my mind ready for the next day. I have to pick it back up. Just similar to Natalie, I work on the weekends and I feel like I don't have like no break in between the week. And like the day that everyone gets like short on Wednesdays, we used to say after like a full like schedule every single week. And most of the times when I don't, cause honestly I do miss work. Like just be completely honest. And just like if I'm not there, I don't have to deal with it for that day. And that's like one day that I don't have to worry about something. And then like just personal things as well. Like there's like a lot going on at once. And I just feel like
Yeah, I don't really miss school a lot either, but when I do miss school, I think it's because like what kind of Laurie said, like some days will be really rough, and then I just like don't want to go to school the next day, so I just sit that day out and then just like try to get myself together for the next day.
And just the next question, you can think about yourself or even your peers or what you're hearing from your peers. What makes it difficult for you or your peers to come to school?
From what I've heard, well, I know senioritis is a really big thing, and I think, yeah. But I honestly think it's just like a lot of students are in the same boat as I am. It's just like a lot of responsibilities that we have, and I think just like a lot of pressure to perform well, and just especially with like not even just with school, but just stressing about what'll happen after school, like college and things, and it causes a lot of anxiety. So I think a lot of students, like from what I've heard from my peers, is just they're really anxious all the time. And it causes a lot of burnout, causes a lot of stress on themselves. And I think it's just like having one day to just not worry about something really can benefit them. Obviously not missing school isn't good, but I think just like having one day to breathe is what I always hear from a lot of other students, especially the ones in my grade.
I probably say the same thing, just like, it can get like really tiring really fast, and then like, with like everybody else's responsibility at home, and like going to work, or like having to help with their siblings and stuff, that's like a really huge factor of me, it's just like, they just want time to like breathe, like, okay, let me calm down, I've had this horrible week, let me just take one day off, to like relax myself.
I agree, I think the big thing is burnout, and just not having like a time or space that you're not doing anything. And I feel like especially with junior year, like there's a lot of things that you have to like worry about, it's like, like you have to do everything and get it done for next year, so you can be scheduled after that. And I feel like there's like a stigma, or just not a lot of like, about not being like good at everything, you're not having it figured out, and I feel like it's just, when you like have to do everything right, and do it perfectly, it's like you don't have to worry about it for a day. I just take the consequences of being like behind class and have to like stress for a day.
Sometimes, wait, okay, sorry, okay, some things that make it difficult to go to school, I feel like, are like, you know what's coming ahead, like tests and things, and sometimes, like, I would just wanna avoid that, cause like, I know I'm not ready for it, but I know I should be, but I think I tend to try to like avoid it, and I just end up.
Is transportation, you hear transportation around across the board?
Sometimes, yeah, like public transportation, I hear sometimes it's like, cause it's a schedule for the buses. So if you miss one bus, that's like 20 minutes out each time, that like has a 20-minute interval, then you're gonna be at least 20 minutes late to your first class. So I think it's just like being able to be on time to take public transportation as well. And then even just like after school, like sometimes the buses aren't, like even just the weather now, I think it becomes more difficult to take public transportation, or just even transportation from someone's home to school can be difficult.
What keeps y'all coming? I know we talked about it previous slide, but, what makes you guys come to school? What is you guys' the biggest thing?
I think I have a really good support system, not just from my community, but from my peers and my teachers, and obviously all my administrators. I think they just really motivate me to run home. And I think like, even if I miss one day, like everyone's always checking on me. Everyone's like, are you okay? Like, is everything well? Like, we'll help you when you do return. And I think that just really motivates students to want to come. And I think just like, even participating in community events or having something to look forward to at the end of the week, like even just like, I know we're planning a talent show, but I think that'll really help or try and boost students to come just to see something fun. I think that's really nice, and I think that's what always just tries to keep me coming, just knowing that there's always something to look forward to.
Something for me would be like social interaction, because sometimes when I'm busy home, I need more. Like, even though I'm here to relax, I need more because I'm not talking to nobody. So like, I feel like social interaction for me, and then also just to like get help from my teachers, because like, I don't want to fall too far behind, so I'm trying to stay there for like.
For me, honestly, I think mostly it's just my friends and people that are around like all the time. Like I don't not talk to my friends like a day. And I also think it's like the fear of falling too behind. It's like, oh, I just missed like 4 tests in one day. When am I gonna really make that up? But I think for the most part, it's really just my friends.
Yeah, same with Maury, like, I love talking to people, and I feel like when I'm at home, I just get really bored too, and I feel like same with like Aisha too, like, I wouldn't wanna miss too much school, because like, it'll all build up, and at the end of the year or semester, I don't be cramming in all my work.
Alright, so this is the $1 million question. I think if you guys solve this, you might have a bright future. This is what we've been trying to solve forever, right? So many adults have tried to bump their heads to try to solve, like, so you have this student who is is missing more than 10% of schooling a year. They might not have the same social interaction with their social peer group that you all, might not be connected to the schools. What support or what strategies would you all give or help this parent that is struggling to come to school?
Um, 'Cause, like, I feel like, 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 like, I feel like,
There's no right or wrong answer, we've been trying to find the right answer, but.
I feel like having someone that's not gonna like slap you on the wrist for not being there, but someone that like can help you catch back up, because I know if I didn't have 100% classes, I wouldn't be able to catch back up. So I think, I don't know, I think just having someone that's there to help you, like not even just academically, but just in general, a day that you don't want to be there, someone's like, you need to be there, but not like you need to be there or you're gonna like fail, like someone that's like, I don't know, encouraging you to be there, but I think that's also like, I guess a social thing.
Something like a warm manner, somebody that can
Yeah,
get you to go, but also understands
yeah.
and willing to listen. Alright. Anybody else want to try?
Maybe someone that like holds us like accountable, I guess, of like, yeah, like you're saying, like to push me towards like, oh, you need to keep going, like doing this, whatever. It's like, just to keep up on all my work, I guess, and just support, I guess.
I would say, like teacher involvement. Like I feel like a lot of kids skip school because like, oh, I don't want to go to that teacher today. Or, oh, I'm gonna skip that class because I don't like that teacher, and then it starts adding up, and then you're skipping that class every week because you just don't like the teacher. I just think it's like, not even just about the teachers, but like having that relationship between the teacher and students, where like, oh, you know what, okay, I don't like her per se, but like. Like, I don't like her per se, but oh, you know, I'm still gonna go to her class because I need to learn, and I'm gonna put that aside to be like, okay, let me put my feelings aside, let me just go learn, and then I could just like walk out, or not walk out, but like, after class is over, I'm like, okay, that's over, let me move forward with my day.
I think a good, like, something that could really help would be beneficial, I think, is just having like a sort of community in each class. I think what Mario was saying, just like students will avoid classes if there's a specific teacher or if there's specific students. So I think just trying to make it like a really good learning environment for people, where it's not just only about academics, but it's also about like, I have friends in here, even if they're not my best friend, or even if I don't talk to them outside of class, I know that I will feel comfortable to learn, to communicate, and to just be myself in a community. And I think just having like multiple of those, where in each class you just feel welcome, you just feel like, you know, I feel good being here. So I think just having something like that, or just at least trying to have a sort of community or community bonding in each class, I think would be really nice too.
Gotcha. I was at Sacramento covering today, and this young second grader who blew out of class. But he had a moment to kind of write the teacher a letter, and it was like, I got upset when you didn't let me finish my story. So it's just like, you know, those moments where opportunity for communication too, because so much gets lost in translation, where the teacher felt like, okay, the student is gone, now it's not my problem, somebody else could take care of it, but it was nice just to see the kids and see them come back together, and the teacher was able to apologize, like, oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were finished with telling me your story about Sonic the Hedgehog. And then they continued the research and talk about Sonic the Hedgehog and was able to repair. So I think even having that time to repair and communicate with teachers on that level is essential. So yeah, closing, I just wanted to leave time open for two board members to ask more questions, or the board to ask more questions.
Okay, one, maybe basic one, what are block days?
You guys, yes, talking about it.
Block days are basically, instead of doing all 7 classes in one day, every day for 5 days, Monday and Tuesday, we split it up. So Monday, or Tuesday, Wednesday, sorry. Tuesday is classes 1, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. And then you have, and they're an hour and 30 minutes long each, and there's about 5 minutes passing time, but we get a longer lunch. And then Wednesday is 5th, 6th, and 7th. And then after those classes, we have a flex time where it's from 2 to 2:45, and we can go to teachers if we need help or anything. And it's actually really helpful because they close off the library if you don't have passing grades. So like if you were to have like a C or lower in a class, they'd be like, oh, you need to go to that teacher and go get work done, so you can't come to the library and just goof off. So I think it's really effective. And I don't like the 90-minute classes, but I like the concept of it. If they were just a little shorter and a little bit more time in between classes, I'd like to feel better.
I had a question about this 15 days per year. I mean, when I think about that, I'm like, that doesn't seem like very many days. Like, if you're sick a couple of times and say you go on vacation or take a Monday or a Friday, like that adds up so quickly.
Yeah.
And like me, I'm like, how many takes? Like, I don't know. The preschoolers more so than like, you know, the older kids, but like, what is the awareness around that? Like, I don't think I ever heard that number before as like, and me as a student, I was like, on it. And I feel like if I had known like, oh my gosh, 15 days a year, like if I had that in my head, I'd be like, okay, maybe I'll go today and I'll save this, you know, mental health day for like further down the road or, you know, something like that. So I'm just kind of curious, like, what's the socialization around that? Because that's a big impact. 15 days a year is a whole year by 12th grade, like that's a lot.
Yeah, I think that's why we try to display it in different data points in this presentation and sharing it out to schools, because I think people just hear the 10% and it's 10%, but when you see the total number of periods that 15 days is, then it jumps out to you, like, that's a lot of periods, like, if you miss, AP Lang, you know, constantly, then that puts you behind, and also same thing in middle school, you're missing, humanities, throughout the years, then that's gonna build up and add up to your success in English language arts. So, I think putting in different numbers and different data points around it, I think is gonna be our next iteration in how we communicate these pieces out.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm trying to say is like, having this very accessible number like that, like, there's so much data, right? And like, you kind of like gloss over after a while, because there's just so many numbers, but if it's just like this easy, like, this is it, this is your goal, just like stay under this thing, for parents and students, like, that for me at least is helpful, like, now that I know that, I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I have this goal. And then I just hear like a lot about burnout. And like, I hear the same thing at work with people, and I know like I have a lot of conversations with my team about burnout and how are you taking care of yourself and what are we doing, and like, so I'm kind of curious, like, what kind of tools are students given around dealing with burnout, how to avoid it, how to, you know, that sort of thing, because like, I don't know, like, I feel like when I was in school, that was a thing, but we didn't really have the language for that,
Yeah.
and now we do, and how can we deal with
You
that?
know, like, you guys feel like you have tools to deal with it, or you just kind of forced to deal with it on your own?
School, but I think it's just more like you just have to really kind of push through it.
Yeah, that's like, I'm sorry, I feel like it's the responsibility piece, like, you know, that you have to go to school. Like, you have to go, you wanna graduate, like, it's not like a choice, like, you know. I feel like it's just knowing that you kind of have to is almost like the push, but I don't think that like directly in schools, like, there's not many times that I think we just like have like a work day or just like, for like 30 minutes of like the
Yeah.
block, like we just like do something chill, like, I feel like there's always like, it's like a constant assignment that you need to get in.
And I think from Sarah kind of talked about it earlier, right? She has the slow start, the SEL in the morning. But at the high school, there's no advisory right now. There's no SEL. There's times that we try to do on the Wednesdays, but it's not mandatory time where students are like forced to go and really sit down and get that time.
Yeah, because it sounds like people feel like they have to show up at 100% no matter what, and I think like, it needs to be okay for kids to show up no matter where they're at, and if that means like, I'm here, but maybe I can't like do all of the things today, or like, I'm gonna be here, I need to take a longer break between classes, or like, making it possible for people to still go to school and not like feel like you have to be 100% on, because that's just not the reality of the situation.
And making it acceptable too. I think sometimes as adults, we say, we rely on our experience, right? It wasn't that way for us, so no way they should be able to do that too. But we just gotta realize time has changed. Things that are changing, conditions are changing, family responsibilities are changing. So as adults, we have to be acceptable too, to meet kids, how they are showing up.
Yeah, I think it's unlearning some of the adult habits that we have, like Andre's alluding to. Cause I asked the question like, why do we have to go so fast? Cause it's obviously, you see the results, right? And the symptoms of like, these are all like remarkable, amazing students. And we have, and I would attribute like community, connection, relationship, when that's in place, then kids, even the kid who's tired and worked the night before, they may come in and sleep on their desk. But they also know that their teacher is probably gonna pull them aside and say like, hey, you okay? You've been sleeping the last couple of days. But the fact that kids show up, but if there's one experience, like the sixth period, and it stinks, students will make an effort to not go. It's stressful. I wonder about the block, and because that came up in our conversation, I wonder about like, why don't we have a little more chill time? Because I think we're running on the treadmill, and we just are struggling to stop. Thinking like somehow we're gonna be depriving them of critical experiences where I think we're just trying to do too much too fast. That's my theory.
Yeah, this is great. I appreciate getting, feedback from our students. And I think what I always concentrate on and think about is our students who are not connected to student groups, or not in Avid or Elevate, that they don't have the resources, maybe they're struggling at home. I'm thinking a lot about mental health and, transportation, some of those issues that may seem really overwhelming for young people. And so I'm just wondering what our approach is, how we're connecting to that family or to that student. I know that we have calls that go out. I'm just wondering what that experience is like for a student that's struggling, or a parent that's struggling with a student and they're calling in for them, and you're not getting a receptive or a supportive stance from us or support from us. It's punitive, it's letters in the mail, it's not, oh, how can we support you? We connect you to this, or if you know what I'm trying to say is that there needs to be a way that we try to meet students that are struggling where they're at, or families where they're at. We have our students here, they're leaders, and they're able to manage a lot, but we have a lot of kids that can't do that. They're really struggling, and again, we need to find a way to support them. I've heard a lot of districts and board members around the state talk about their punitive approach, and, they've got, they're gonna put students or put parents in jail if kids don't come to school, and that is not the approach, that's not gonna support our kids. So I just what I hope for is that we are really listening and kind of curating a way to be responsive, supportive, because we're in really challenging times. We have families struggling, we have everything happening at the national level, we have, there's a lot of things our kids are dealing with, mental health challenges, financial, food, access, homelessness, there's a lot. And that's just getting up and going to school. I think once kids get here and they get that support, but sometimes it's hard to just get out of the house and get there. And I'm just hoping that we are thinking about how we can be a support system for kids, so.
Yeah, so. This topic is something that really affects me, in a couple of different ways. I dealt with what would be considered chronic absenteeism as a young child. For obvious reasons that I've spoken about, being on spectrum, things like that, and It sounds like, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like what I'm hearing from a lot of you is this kind of idea that I don't have any spoons left. You know, I don't know if you've heard that term before, but it's this idea that at the beginning of the day, you have a certain number of spoons. And each task you do takes a certain number of spoons, and eventually you have no spoons left. Like, so you have to take that break. And that burnout, that anxiety can, if not attended to, will force itself to be attended to, whether it be through physical ailments, emotional, emotional, like, you know, in some way your body is going to tell you, you need time. And it sounds like that a lot of what you guys are dealing with are incredibly diverse, just like our district is. There are additional responsibilities that you're required to take on, whether it be through family, whether it be through your own needs, whatever that may be. And what it sounds like is that unfortunately, this is a very general idea, a very complex and diverse issue, and there can't be one thing that solves it. And like I have personal knowledge of a family where their two kids have a mandatory appointment they have to attend every Friday o'clock. And it's far enough away that even though they go to school in the morning, they leave and they aren't gonna be able to get back to that day on time. And from what I understand, you miss half a day, you've missed a whole day. That's considered an absenteeism, am I right?
More than 3 periods.
Yeah, and so every Friday, they're probably absent,
Yeah.
but that label, that idea does not touch on what's happening within that family. And so I hope that while we talk about this issue, that we are able to, in whatever way we can, address that complexity. You know, like listening to Sarah talk about everything that's in place as far as the SELs, the calm corners, the STEAM access, that sort of thing. Like, it would be great if, I mean, I don't about our budget, but it would be great if we could provide that to our high school students. You know, to be able to allow them to have that space where if they're in a place where they're feeling that burnout, you know, I don't know how much it would help, but having a quiet room you can go to and take care of your work. I know my daughter's come to me and said, Dad, I can't go to school today. I need to stay home so I can get schoolwork done. Because there are things at school that prevent me from doing my schoolwork. And so if I have a quiet place where I can just sit down and focus on it, I'm able to actually do more in that time than if I'm gonna be going to school.
And I think that's a good point, because I do think it's looking at transforming this like 7-period day, 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock, and then for many of our kids, they go off and do post-secondary things where immediately then you're in this flexibility, and you have an 8 o'clock class, and you got a 1 o'clock class, you gotta figure that out. So I do think that schedule should be part of the conversation. Like, we tried some things with our schedule, like, you know, obviously winter break's traditional, but we also have taken like chunks of breaks because we heard our kids and our staff saying the same. Our staff is saying the same thing, right? You know, that they're not, I think we're past the like blaming students or blaming families. I think our staff understand a lot of the factors, but they're feeling that same pressure. So just like you're saying, Mariah, like we're hearing the same thing, the increased level of leave requests, the increased levels of staff absences has increased dramatically. And I think it's really the same reason, like they come to school, they teach all day, they get a little time to prep, and then they come back and do it again the next day. And I think in the world that we're living in now, it's so complex. I absolutely agree with your analogy that it's just so complex. And it's tough to simplify it down to like, hey, you're a chronically absent kid because you missed 10 days of school.
Yeah. But having said that, I also want to acknowledge that there is, you know, there is a real impact in not being at school.
Yeah.
And so it's not just a matter of saying, well, we can't do anything about it, you know.
I guess for Yeah, just trying to figure out what can we do to support our students, especially, you know, as we can see the high school, right? Like, what can we do? You know, I always, and this is just me, the way I think, and, sometimes depending on which of my kids I'm talking to, it's how I visualize it for them, like, you know, because I think like at work, same thing, you know, you're constantly thinking about like, you know, you are dealing with actual mental health or your own personal mental health. And I always have to tell my kids that I just come from a different place where there was no, it was, you got work to do. And that you better get it done. And there was no, like, I could never stay home because I wouldn't be at peace. Like, I don't, you know, like, it would be, so you're gonna stay home, so that means you're gonna do this, this, and this, and like, I had a list, right? So for me, I'm like, well, I'm gonna go to school, because, that was like my out type of thing, so. Like when, like you made the example, right, of like, you know, block classes, the classes are so much longer. And so then I think, like, the first thing that popped into my head was like, okay, so how do we, for our students that are gonna go, you know, are thinking about going off to college, right? Like, maybe that's preparing you for that, because college classes are really long, right? And this is just me hearing from mine that are in college now, right? And then thinking about like, oh, you know, all the things you're talking about is the things that I hear from my adult children in college, right? But then also they're like, but in college you have the flexibility of going and escaping in the library, going and taking time for yourself, and, you know, and even though you have like those 4 tests that you're gonna have in one day, right? Like having a more flexible schedule of preparing yourself to be able to do that, and then taking a step back if you do need to take a mental health break and stuff. So like, how do we prepare them for that? Because like, and then now you made a comment, like, you know, a lot of seniors are also thinking like, well, what am I gonna do? I haven't had it all figured out, but like, I mean, I'm 48, I still don't have it figured out, right? So it's like, but how do you prepare them for that, the fear of graduating high school, and especially like for myself, I was a kid in high school that I did not know what I was gonna do after high school. I was just like, I guess I'm just gonna go work full time. I'm just, you know, I don't know, you know, so I always tell my nieces and my nephews and my kids, I was like, just because you see me put together today doesn't mean I was put together at 18, at 17. It took a lot of getting there, but like, I wish people were talking to me when I was young and in my ear, and not feeling like, you better go to, you know, when I grew up and then when I was going to school, it was the law, like, you better go to school, your parents are gonna be put in jail type of thing. That really how it was. So you know, my parents were like, you're not gonna put me in jail because you don't want to go to school type of thing, right? But also that I didn't have that space at home to just take a break. So taking a break at home for me was not it, right? So like, how do we, like, you know, we have this strict, this is what we're supposed to do and this is what they're supposed to learn, but we're living in a different time now, mentally, just overall, we've been through a lot, we're still going through a lot. So how do we get to even 50%, you know? And I think I love what you said, like, I didn't know either, 14 days, 15 days, so like, you know, how do we communicate that to the community of that supports our students? Like, how do we communicate to the parents? You know, because I had the same thing, like, I had to work on the weekends and and sometimes I was leaving work at 11, 12, midnight, and I had to catch the bus home because my parents were waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go to work. So it's like, how do we communicate? How to engage everyone and put this presentation that is like eye-opening in a sense, but also like, how do we give them the support? Like, you know, that's where my brain's like, yeah, And knowing like, how do you correlate it with in the future, this is probably in the future type of thing, right? You know, you're not gonna have managers that you like, right? So.
He was talking with you, Mario was talking recently about a boss situation. Your boss.
No, but it is, right? So then like, how do you deal with that when you're out in the real world? Like, cause it's real world, but when you're out, like, not going to your day-to-day type of thing. So how do you deal with that? Recently, same thing. I had with my son, we had to deal with something like, what steps? And if you don't have someone there to advocate for you, how do we teach you that type of thing versus like, you know, then I see it, like, I'm just gonna quit my job, and then and there's a rolling thing of different jobs, right? So, I don't know, that's just where my mind goes, like, I know we have a problem, I know we need to fix it, I know that we, as a board, we can't just say, oh, you know, let's just flip this page
Yeah.
and not worry about it. But, just trying to understand how to fix it, and that's the $1 million question, right? I'll get rich if I can fix it.
Yeah, you will.
Anyways, I know that we're.
So Chair, I'm gonna suggest if we wanna get through the Board of Education piece, because my piece is all thick with policy. You won't be able to stay with me, so I'm suggesting that we carry my piece forward to our work session
Okay.
in January, so the board can get through their business, and then we would skip superintendent presentation. The most important thing I needed to tell you tonight is that Stacy Michelson, our government affairs person, has been hired by OSBA. We're still kind of problem solving that, so by the time we get to the work session, I should have some ideas about what that's gonna look like for us. But otherwise, I just say get through the board.
Next on the agenda, thank you, Mr. Gonzalez.
Thank you, guys. Great presentation.
Is student, representatives monthly ASB report out? Anything?
Not really much going on. We're doing our talent show on Wednesday, or not Wednesday, Thursday. We have the Winter Arts Festival Wednesday. We also have the study session next, leadership and plan for Wednesday. Is it during flex?
It's from 2 to 2.
Yes, it's during flex, and then we're just covering math classes and like.
It's just strictly math because
Yeah.
Miss Bong, our leadership teacher, said that she's been getting a lot of like, just a lot of students telling her like, I'm really behind in math right now. So, she said that we should at least have a study hall and, there'll be like student tutors there, just students.
What time's the talent show?
It's double assembly schedule, so it's at 11. It's from 11, it's from like 10.
During the day.
10 to 11 something. It's between it, because there's 2, so it's like back to back. I just don't know how long it is, or I just don't know what time it starts.
Are you guys communicating that out? I don't remember seeing nothing on social media about the talent show.
We made TikToks about it.
Oh, I don't have TikTok.
No, but we posted.
I'm one of
it on
those.
The Instagram.
Okay,
Mr. Mauser,
maybe.
you have times.
The assembly, because it is in the auditorium, is split between 2 different ones that are back to back. The first one, which is teachers A to H, take roll, and then the assembly starts at 10:23 and ends at 11:03. And then those teachers that are J through W, not included in those, goes from 11:08 to 11:48.
Okay, thank you. Oh, I have to look at my work schedule. We can go, yeah. Do you have time in your work schedule?
I'm gonna be an MC.
All right. Anything else you want to share with us?
I think so.
Oh, we're having a senior bake sale on Wednesday as well, so literally everything's on Wednesday.
The talent show is on Wednesday.
No, Thursday.
Thursday. And Wednesday, Arts Festival.
Yeah.
Actually, it's
It's at 6.
That one's in the evening.
Yeah, but there's like no time that but there's like nearly 30 acts. So I guess just whatever.
It's done.
It's like 4 hours.
Okay, it's like a board meeting. Yeah. But a little more fun. Okay, all right,
I think that's.
okay. Last week before winter break.
Yes.
I know, we do have some people that are on in the sports. What's your next game? Tomorrow? Home game?
You say it with such confidence.
No, we were literally talking about like trying to cancel the rest of the preseason. Cause we're just not in it, like, there's too much drama on that team for us to cooperate together. We look like a
We need
mess.
a big session of.
We look like a mess, so. But I don't think that's they talked about that today, cause I love practice speak.
Alright.
But it's just like a mess. I think that if we really wanna have, cause we have a really good coach, we have,
Yeah.
we have a really good coach. But we can't use him to our best ability if there's so much outside drama. Cause then cause he told us one day, oh, we're coaching y'all's attitudes, we're not even coaching y'all's players, because everybody on that team has like an attitude. I'll include myself, I do have a little attitude, but it's not everybody. But like, he's just like trying to say that like, in order for us to get better and have more development, we need to stop with all the drama and all the bickering back and forth, and it's just so hard to do that when everybody has like a collective attitude, and like, nobody wants to like be calm and like, okay, let me not have attitude, let me not get worked up over this. Yeah. So it's just a mess right now, really, guys.
That just reminded of something that has stuck with me, my mentor for years told me, and I still use it to this day because I do. Get your mind right. That's the main thing he would always tell me. Get your mind right, check it out, you're focused on what you're here for, and then, so it's like whenever I'm like spinning and stuff, cause he's my little Gemini twin over there. I always go back to, let me reset my mind because I'm too focused on this noise when I'm here to do this type of thing. So sounds like you guys just need to work through. But you have a game tomorrow, if anybody wants to go and support, or maybe we need to wait for a couple more games. So let us know, we'll be there. Okay, all right, thank you for your report. I don't know, Sonia, if you have anything from OSBA Board of Directors, the Color Caucus, NSBA?
No, nothing at this time. What I'm working on now is one to provide an end of the year report and, so I'm ending my 5 years on OSBA and NSBA Pacific region, so I'll have a larger report to share in January.
When's your last day?
The end of the month. I have one more meeting tomorrow, a governance committee meeting, then I will be done, so.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you for years of service.
I'm perfect.
LPC, I haven't had any meetings, like I said, the only thing that, we received from LPC update, I don't know if I could share that. Okay, so, we had, Efren Samudio, he resigned from his position. His last day, is December 20th, which I got really sad because I really love him on the, LPC. He's amazing, he comes with a lot of knowledge. Sad to see him go, but I know that, he's just gonna bloom wherever he goes, so. That's an update, and Mr. Lopes already gave the update that Stacy Michelson is, now on the OSBA Director of Government Relations and Communications. She will join January 6th. And big loss for us as well. But I know she's gonna advocate for us and do a lot there on the OSBA. So those are the LPC updates that I have. Park Rose Educational Foundation, their meeting is happening this evening, obviously, where none of us are there. Save the date, April 26th, they're having their dinner auction. A special appeal bid will benefit the middle school and high school art department with technology that will prepare students for the real world careers that would align with the industry expectations. It looks like we don't have a board liaison signed up for their May meeting. And, when is their May meeting? May 19th. Oh, I don't know, I might be in DC. If someone's able to sign up. And then just a reminder, when you go attend those meetings, make sure that we still have to do our report outs to Andrea. And let's see, where else do we have here? Close the house on my computer.
Legislative updates.
Legislative updates, just a reminder, we have, our Multnomah County, May 2025 special election. The filing date is 61 days before the election, so again, we'll keep this on here until, all our, well, can't convince Sonia to come back, but I want her to, but I know she has a lot of more other things that she's gonna be doing, like taking a break. Please, I encourage, Joash, Paul, and Mariah for you to run for, the May 2025 special election, and we're gonna have 4 vacancies, and then anyone else that's interested, will run as well. And then we have our review process vacancy questions timeline for the budget committee. Annually, budget will need to elect the chair and vice chair timeline, February 10th, application interviews. So we're gonna post something, how many vacancies do we have?
One, I think, one vacancy.
One,
Yeah,
so we're gonna post something, for the same thing, the same process that we always have,
yep.
okay.
And
where
then
where will we post that?
the question, I think I might have already posted it, the
Oh,
vacancy.
I think you did. I think I saw something.
Yeah, I'll
Yeah, I'll post it again. And then you guys will want to decide on the interview questions for the February 10th, which you can talk about in January if you want now.
Yep.
Okay.
And also we have our resolution of commitment. I don't know if anyone has any questions. I reviewed it. It looks good to me. I think I agree that we need to share it with our community so they know where we stand, get the word out. And so I don't know, student board reps, if you had any questions about it or any comments. I know that you got a copy of it.
It was strong, I approve of it, so.
And if approved, I will send communication out to staff and community tomorrow.
And then, vector training, I don't know. If you haven't done your vector training, obviously is on the agenda, so. Please complete your vector training. If you have any questions, let us know. Superintendent contract. We reviewed, as the board reviewed the superintendent contract. I didn't have any additional questions in regards to that, so, and we reviewed it and like we approved it and like what we.
And you guys just have to formally vote on that tonight. They have to take action.
Yep.
tonight.
Today we take action on the superintendent contract. And you said we're gonna skip.
Yeah, so
What- any updates you wanted to give?
what I would say is I included the precinct results, which is just
Yeah.
from the county website. That just gives you the areas and the neighborhoods and how they voted. So that's a good thing to take a close look at. We will revisit those total results and the breakdown by age, demographic, and the community, so you can kind of get a better sense of possible areas where we fell short, where the 127 votes came from. And then the policy, this is a really deep policy dive. Tonight I had plans to share. I will, obviously, Andrea's included an AI presentation. This deserves time and questions. So I will, Andrea, if you don't mind just forwarding this to the work session We have a community member who made a public comment tonight about artificial intelligence, and I think it's great that we have folks in the community that are engaged around this topic, because it's a very serious topic and an evolving topic on a daily basis. We also have Helen Ying, who is a board member at the MESD. She, through the Color Caucus, is having a student voices project I offered to host at Parkrose High School. So student representatives, this is gonna happen in February. And this is specifically for BIPOC students to come to the training to gain some skills about anti-racism work. And I think it'll be a really powerful session, and obviously would love for some of Parkrose kids to come. So first and foremost, if you guys are interested, I'll bring this back to you all when we meet together, because I know you've got lots on your list, but February, it's a little bit down the road, but not that far.
No, it's around the
But it's gonna be
corner.
at Parkrose High School, on February 8th.
Is that something that we're gonna post like on our social media and stuff?
Yep.
Okay. I did saw Helen, saw her email. And then, you talked about legislative advocacy and how working
Yeah.
through that, right?
Really, it's just figuring out,
Okay.
what will we do in the interim when Stacy transitions, yeah.
So reading the public comment, we do have, one public comment. Since we don't get them that often, do I just read or I state who the person is, or just read what they state, what they put on?
Yeah, their name and what they stated.
All right. So, Robert Weston, posted a public comment. They have students in the school district that is related to artificial intelligence. So, I'll read, what he posted. My name is Robert Weston. I am the Mathematics Division Chair at Clark College in Vancouver, Washington. My son, Jack, is enrolled at Russell Elementary, and we live in the walking distance to his school. The board will be or has discussed artificial intelligence, AI, during the meeting. While AI is a very hot in educational circles, I want to provide a word of caution in its use and implementation. First, we don't know if and when AI companies will charge for their technology. We wouldn't want to integrate AI tools in ways that make our learners dependent on its use. Let's remember that education is an act of liberation, intent on having participants realize the full human condition. Second, as far as I'm aware, there has been very little research done on AI used with children in educational context. Once best practices have been established, I would hope that the Parkrose School District will provide adequate professional development to its educators. Lastly, my own belief is that AI can be used in educational contexts as long as students have mastered basic concepts. One way to do this could be to ask all educators to put a moratorium on AI use in their classes for the first half of their term or school year. Like any other tool, we have to carefully consider when and how we use AI in our classrooms. Through a cautious and deliberate approach, I am hopeful we can support our learners become better thinkers and prepare them for an unknown future. Thank you for your time and attention. And it was something that was on our agenda, and
Yes,
we'll revisit it on our next working session.
I did read it ahead of time and have met Robert, and we'd be happy to engage in further conversation, because this won't be the last one, and our time in January won't be the last one.
We do have our action items, so let's move on to actions items. Student representatives are welcome to make or second a motion, though they are not voting members of the student, voting members of the board. Do any student reps have any questions or comments regarding the action items? All right. 16A, do I hear a motion to approve or reject the 2025 to 2028 superintendent contract for Mr. Michael Lowe?
I move to approve, the 2028 superintendent contract for Michael Lopes out.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Discussion,
Oh, concession,
discussion.
discussion, oh my god, it's late. Discussion, any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. The motion to approve, tonight's, 2025-2028 superintendent contract for Michael Lopes, say how, passes. Do I hear a motion to approve or reject the resolution to reaffirm our commitment to our immigrant and LGBTQ plus students, families and staff, families and staff?
I move to approve the resolution to reaffirm our commitment to immigrant and LGBTQ plus students, families and staff.
Do I hear a second?
A second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. The motion to approve the resolution to reaffirm our commitment to immigrant and LGBTQ plus students, families, and staff passes. Any future agenda items? Correspondence and or announcements. Our next meeting will be Monday, January 13th, 2025. Our working session and our business meeting is January 27th, 2025. Our upcoming events is BIPOC Student Voices Project, February 8th from 10 to 2 at Park Rose High School. And then our Park Rose Educational Foundation Dinner and Option, April 26th. And the meeting is adjourned.